When I worked with him, Mr. Greg Berger, he had his first session with me in animation.
That's absolutely correct.
And he and I were at a casting place. I did some acting, especially when I could cast myself. And I said to him, "My God, you're playing Optimus Prime now, aren't you? Weren't you doing that in the TV show?"
No.
Anyway, I heard you speak, and I said to you, "My God, your voice has changed." He said, "Yeah, over the years." And then he's got a voice, he can do Wells right now. So.
I probably could, but I won't. Meet Grimlock, meet Dynamite Leader, right? Stick with the classics.
And I think this is the most popular character in the show.
Yeah.
Is Grimlock. I mean, you're Grimlock. Where's Grimlock? All the time.
To speak to that other point about just the camaraderie of the community, though, and the not necessarily encouragement, but willingness to allow us to play in the booth, and the fact that, at least when I was in, everything was clustered into scenes that involved everyone who was in the scene. That's certainly the way all of the episodes were done. I believe that energy, urgency, humor, epic, galaxy saving, whatever it is, it's contagious when other people are in the room. And the length of time for which all of us, though so many of us, have stayed viable and have stayed competitive and have stayed working is unbelievable. And we bump into each other. A lot of us have the same agents, or we get sent on the same things. But we've seen each other consistently ever since these beginnings or this particular effort.
Some of us even before that.
And Dan and I went to college together. We are destined to run into each other forever and always.
Yes, we have burial plots.
How cool is that?
Which gives you some idea. We actually burial plots. Please don't talk when I'm talking.
Beg your pardon. Gives you some time to be able to speak at all.
Nice.
Hi, David! I didn't understand that joke. But it gives you some idea of how competitive this business is when all of us have been in other circumstances, other contexts all throughout our careers. It's been fun. Except for you.
You've had an acting career all the way since. I mean, you started out then and you're still working. What did you take from Transformers? Yeah.
First of all, it's an honor to be doing an American Cinematheque screening. Thank you for. Thank you guys for coming to see the movie. See, I grew up as a fan of these shows anyway, so just the banter that you're watching is exactly what it was like when we were working, doing a session. I get to see basically my heroes, because when I was growing up, I did a lot of voiceovers, and I was the kid, obviously, and they were the pros. The first cartoon I did was, of course, with Frank Welker, and once I started getting into the Transformers and doing G.I. Joe, it was basically getting to work with my idols, because again, I'm a fan. When Optimus Prime died, I was crushed. So this is great. This is so cool to see you guys. I'm a little nervous. I'm not sure what else to say other than one thing I was going to throw out was I also remembered working with Judd Nelson. I think I went to a couple of sessions for the film. And so one was just us we have a little scene at the beginning, so I got to work with him, and I agree, he was really cool. Scatman Crothers, of course.
Yes.
But then I do also remember the session, and I guess it was Wally Burr, is that where it was? Because it was not where we used to do this TV series. It was at another.
I had two studios at the time, so it could have been at either one.
I think it was at the larger space, because I also remember the booth being up, seeing really far away.
That was the South Studio.
One thing I wanted to ask is I remember the word shit was in the script. And I remember,
Surprise.
I remember the guys, the adults, I remember kind of observing you guys talking about it. Should we have it in? Should we not? And I could be wrong, but did we do an alternate take of that line without?
You're talking to an old man here.
But that was my recollection.
Yes, we did the alternate line with "Oh Feathers."
I don't know. What?
Oh,
Never
feathers.
mind.
The line was all feathers.
I don't know whether it was there or not. That could have gotten in as an aside, sort of, from the writer. See, he didn't make a big deal of it then. Somebody will take it out or somebody will leave it in. Hey, it's kind of neat to be able to say that in 1987. So I just don't remember the incident. I thought it was somebody ad-libbing.
Even to hear it now, though, hearing it today was trippy. I mean, watching the print. The print was amazing, by the way. It looks so great. But even to hear it still feels kind of controversial, even now. You still don't.
Yes,
Old
it's a little
school.
raw.
You guys have done the series for so long. Was it when you got the script for the film? There's so much. It's so violent, and so many characters gone. And what was the reaction when you read that for the first time? Because this was mid '80s, where everything was, like I said, the Gilvezan gang, where it was very that kind of vibe happening. What was your reaction when you got the script?
You're talking about the profanity?
That and just the killing of like Sharkticons. People were just dying left and right in this film. And I was a little kid.
The overall violence.
Yeah.
Like someone said earlier, it's like if you saw it, you go to the end and you say, God, I'm not dead, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Remember, we
The
don't.
next season.
We don't see
I'm
this-
amazed at the continuity. During when we were doing this, at one point, Jay Bacall and his father, who was Joe Bacall, were sitting next to me, as they always were in recording session. Jay was a Harvard graduate of a couple of years, very young. His father was a more experienced advertising man. And where was I going with this? Somebody remind me.
Violence.
The violence. Was it the violence?
You're all talking at once.
Outline of how many people died.
What the hell was it?
While Wally's making up his mind.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Well, I was going to say that, and this is not just true for this project, but, you know, as I said, the only person who sees the visuals while you're recording is the director. So Wally may have been aware of the violence, but for the actors, it's tough to tell. Remember, if we're not speaking, that scene's a total mystery to us. We're not even involved. So you may have seen it.
I now remembered, he nudged me, and it did something to me. I did not have a storyboard at this point, and I was kind of pissed, because a storyboard is what tells you what's going on, whether the man has to be, whether he's hit, has to do it, or at some point. In any case, the storyboard is your master, and that was what I stared at and looked at, and I was sitting there and I kept saying to Joe and to Jay, his son, God damn it, how come we don't have a storyboard at this point? Well, it was a rushed deal. There are always time constraints and you're doing a thing like this. And they got kind of pissed at me, and finally Joe said, just shut up and do your job. Little moments, you know, here in the picture. But I was angry because I didn't have a storyboard, so I was winging it. And I'd have to say, what are you going to write for this thing? Are there any sketches? Nothing? No, just shut up and do the thing. So I'm working blind in a way, because the storyboard was my motivation for everything that I did. I wrote little notes in the script. The actors don't have anything visual other than what the director tells them to, which somebody already explained. I'm shutting up again.
One of the greatest voice actors to me, I laugh every time I just hear him say any words, was Chris Latta as the star.
Yeah.
Stories about Chris.
Well, I went to the first morning of the BotCon, and 3 people came up to me, a blonde lady and 2 kids in their 20s, and introduced herself as Chris Latta's wife. And I was very touched, and his son and his daughter. And I think most of you know the story behind Chris. He was a stand-up and a very intense guy. And he could do Cobra or the voices he did in this show all day long and not have his voice go to pieces. Not many people would do that, but he was. I once got him aside. I said, "For God's sakes, you are one hell of an actor." I think comics are strange. A lot of them have a lot of anger that they're getting out being stand-ups. But in any case, I tried to encourage him to become a serious actor, to do drama, not just characters. And I don't know whether he ever wanted to do it or wanted to go back to stand-up. But I admired him very much for his ability to create these voice-killing, throat-killing roles, and the fact that he was a damn good actor.
We used to joke that he had barbed wire in his throat. He could just go on, because Wally would ask for a lot of retakes. When you hear a screaming line in the movie, he may have done it 25 times before he got it the way Wally wanted. And I mean,
You guys always exaggerate when you've been drinking.
all right, 15. But Chris was one of the people that I met throughout my career where I would look at him and I would go, you know, if this guy goes on to become a big, big star, I won't be in the least bit surprised.
No.
He's got it. He was so talented. And you may be aware of this, but if not, this is a kind of a fun thing. Crank up your YouTube. Chris did a movie called A Stranger Among Us. And it's a relatively short scene, but it's up on YouTube. Two hoods come into a jewelry store to shake the place down, but there's an undercover cop played by Melanie Griffith. She gets the drop on them, handcuffs them, they break away, and they dash through the streets of New York, and there's ultimately a car crash. But you'll be able to find it on YouTube very easily. The movie is A Stranger Among Us, and all you need to do is put in the name of the actor that Chris runs through New York handcuffed to. It's a very young, thin James Gandolfini. And
Chris Latta or Chris Collins?
you know, I don't know how, I think he's Chris Collins in the movie. But I looked at that and I thought, my God, I could have seen Chris in The Sopranos in a heartbeat. I can think of at least, 3 parts he could have done. It's such a shame. He was such a gifted guy. And so go to YouTube, throw in A Stranger Among Us and James Gandolfini and have some fun.
You can also find on YouTube some of his stand-up. Which, if anybody's seen it already, it's really striking. The characters that he just dares the audience to laugh. It's like, or dares them not to laugh sometimes. He just gets in their face. He was amazing. There was a danger to him. Also, that you're watching, you say, okay, what is he going to do next? It was really exciting.
I would throw in that he was one of those great talents who had a fire in his belly and he had to find a place to put it. And he put all of it into whatever it was he was doing. I don't think he ever wasn't a serious actor. I think whatever those characters asked of him vocally or internally or whatever, he had to have a place to put it. He's one of the most intense, talented people it's ever been my great pleasure to know. And danger is the perfect word. He had this air of danger about him, and he was able to throw in a way that you knew was full out, and he was going all the way with everything he did.
And
Great
nobody
talent.
and nobody sweat like him.
Boy, did he sweat.
You didn't want to be next to him in the session because you would be soaked by the time he was done. You remember? He was so intense with what he was doing. Yeah, he was physical too, and he would just fly everywhere. It was amazing.
Roger C. Carmel sweated so much he would bring a full bath towel to sessions. I'm not joking. A full bath towel.
Yeah, he would come in with his towel around the neck. And the studio, we had 2 studios. One of them was cantilevered over the car parking area. And when Roger C. Carmel would go in there and start to get excited about what he was doing, the floor would start vibrating. I was worried that we would fall through and land on cars below.
Dr. C. Carmel, as you remember?
Yeah, he's probably best known for being Lord Harry Mudd in Star Trek.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, great, big, huge guy. And if you pushed one of his buttons, I remember one of his buttons was Charlton Heston. For some reason, he didn't like Charlton Heston. So, it was like Niagara Falls, you know. Slowly I turned.